Descriptive writing, obviously that ties into the daily writing you were doing. So first up, descriptive writing. Why is it so important? Well, obviously it's the descriptive writing that like brings the reader into the world that you're creating, right? Okay, that's going to be the actual thing that hooks them in and brings them in there, because that's what makes them be able to see it. It evokes those sights, those sounds, the smells, tastes, so forth, so on. Okay, so that's going to be one of the biggest tools that you can use to really hook those readers. So descriptive writing is obviously very, very, very important. There are a couple different things that you can do to take care of that sensory writing. First off, one, you want to make sure that you are creating a dominant impression, okay, an overall feel, an overall mood, and you want to make sure that you're consistent in the language that you're using when you're using this description, so that you are maintaining that mood, okay. So if something feels very, safe and warm, whatever, well then that's, you're maintaining that. If it feels very exciting and energetic, you're doing that. If it's very, suspicious or suspenseful, you're doing that, okay? Sensory details, okay, those of course are key. Sensory details are the things that you sight, sound, touch, smell, taste, so forth, and that's what kind of gives you using those details are what gives the reader the impression that you're trying to give them. Think about the difference between these two sentences. First off, I walked on the beach. Okay, it's factual, nothing wrong with that at all. What about the salt air burned my nose as the warm sand wormed its way between my scorched toes? It's a lot more interesting, isn't it? And you can get a much better picture for what's going on. Okay, so the factual version isn't wrong, but it's not very interesting and it's not fun to read. Okay, so that's of course what we're going after, is all those sensory details. So you want to make sure that you have all of those descriptions in there. Additionally, you want vivid language versus vague language. Okay, vivid versus vague. Vague is going to be accurate, but it's not going to be very specific. The burrito was gross. Yeah, okay, that's true, but you're not exactly explaining it. It's not very descriptive. It's not very vivid. What about this version? The rancid filling oozed out of the wrapper as if even it wanted to escape the culinary nightmare from which it had spawned. Much more descriptive, much more vivid. Okay, just make sure that you're thinking about that use of the vivid language instead of the vague. Okay, vivid versus vague. Lastly, you want to make sure that you're also varying the sentence structure. And this is true really with all writing all the time, not just because of description, but just to be engaging the reader. Think about this. If you're listening to somebody give a lecture or just talk for whatever, and every single thing that they say follows that same pattern and has that same tone of voice, well, it's not going to be very interesting, is it? I mean, it's going to be pretty vague, or it's going to be really boring. It's going to be very... It's not going to suck you in, right? Well, you got to vary the sentence structure to avoid the written version of monotone. Okay, you vary that sentence structure. You have some sentences that are really short, some that are very long, some that are very descriptive, some that are very blunt, and put all that stuff together and you get something very interesting. Okay, so just something to keep in mind in the description. Also, there are a couple things you do want to avoid. Don't do too many adjectives. You're going to reach a point where suddenly there's like 18 adjectives in this one sentence and you can't tell what the heck is going on anymore. Okay, so avoid that. Same thing with adverbs. Okay, there's just a point, and you're going to be able to sense it, where all of a sudden there's just too much description in there. Okay, and just pull that back. And then one thing you definitely never, ever want to do is to use those cliched figures of speeches, things like green with envy, or till the cows come home, or any of those sort of expressions, because they're so trite and overused, they don't really have that meaning. Use your own writing. Okay, don't fall back on those cliches. All right, so that is description. Well, hopefully you got a good handle on the descriptive writing. Hopefully the writing that you did earlier has a good handle on that as well. We've got a couple of things we want to talk about here, and we're going to be applying all this stuff to your short story here. All right, see you in a sec.